Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage
the founder and chairman, Mr. Steve Moss.
Good morning, my Exit family. How y'all doing? I'm glad to be here. You didn't think I was going to come. I came in by the Exit Starship, the Starship Enterprise, and at the speed of light, 186,282 miles per second, just to be with you. I didn't have to clear customs. I didn't have to show my passport. I didn't have to take my belt or my shoes off. I didn't have to wait for my bags. I didn't have to go through interrogation and any kinds of inspections. Just to be with you, and there's no place I'd rather be here than with you. And this is live. I can see you. Derek, I can see you with that white jacket. I love it. Hey, man, looking good. Christina, dressed in dark over there. I can see you. And who wants to have some fun today? Hey? And I want to talk about my favorite subject. I want to talk about you. But before I start, I'd like to say a special thank you to all of my people, all my organizers, everybody that's put this together. Christina Lewis has been with me 30 years, and he's in charge of organizing just about everything that this convention is all about. How many people have enjoyed the convention so far? Okay. And her team, they've done an absolutely magnificent job, and special salute to Giacomo and his tech team and everybody that's involved here. You've done an absolutely wonderful job, and I'm so pleased with that. And it's certainly a delegation of authority and responsibility, but as you've seen throughout the week, we have especially strong people, very capable people, very competent, diligent people who are success-oriented, all specializing in helping to get the most and the best out of you. Now, special prayers at this stage for everybody in Florida that went through that horrific storm, Ian, and the unfortunate damage that was done there. We're talking, when you think about this, $75 billion to $100 billion worth of damage. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about that, what $100 billion worth of damage is all about, but that's 200,000 houses at $500,000 each, gone. Now, there weren't all houses. There was buildings, boats, all kinds of equipment, and so on and so forth. What a tragedy, and there was the loss of life. Over 100 people lost their life in that particular storm. So we say our prayer for each and every one of them and their families and wish them the best of everything. Okay, now let's get started. Here's the big question for you. Who am I and what am I doing? And that's what we're going to deal with here today. Who am I? Who am I? Well, I want to take a look at this. You're going to look through my eyes to see my perspectives on who you are as an individual. Male or female, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the status, doesn't matter the nationality, the color of the creed, doesn't matter the sexuality, doesn't matter any of that, doesn't matter. You're a human being in the room. Our job is to do whatever's necessary with, the ingredients at hand to help you to build a better life than you've ever experienced before. And good for your family, good for your future, good for your bank account, all of it. So let's just start taking a look. And instead of saying, who are you? I'm going to ask some questions and, what are you working with? Because you wake up in the morning, it's all about you. It's literally all about you. You sit there and say, you got 100 billion brain cells. You got 50 trillion cells in your body approximately. You got 640 muscles. You got 206 bones. You got 45 joints. And you've got 50 to 100 trillion bacteria in your body that help you with things like digestion and so on and so forth. And you've got 8 major colonies of bacteria in your body doing jobs. You've got enough E. coli in your stomach to wipe out the entire universe, but it helps you digest your food. It's all in control. A wonderful set of systems here, and you're blessed with that. And that's what you're living there every day as an individual. Now, keep in mind, you're totally unique. You're special. You're one of a kind. There's never been another one like you. There never is going to be another one just like you. They broke the mold when they made you. Special, unique, precious under all circumstances. Now, not always do we look in the mirror and see ourselves as being precious. Now, I'm going to look at it from this perspective. When I help to get the most and best out of people, I work from the inside out. When you listen to motivators on the street, you've been to a lot of seminars, you've read a lot of textbooks, and you've gotten involved. I've done that myself. They always work from the outside in. If you really want to get the most and best out of somebody, you've got to work from the inside out. And I've been in the industry for 46 years, but I've been studying human psychology and physiology for 50 years. Now, back in the old days, one of the first gifted motivators that I experienced was Bob Proctor, and he's since passed this past year. Wish him all the best spiritually. And he introduced me to a pure potentiality, and I sat in a class with him with 100 people, and he said, here's a pad of paper in front of you with a pen. I want you to write down something for me. In 4 to 6 years, you can become an international expert in any topic if you stay on that topic. And he said, that's the problem. People don't stay on the same topic. But you are potentially capable of that. So what I want you to do is write down what you want to become an international expert at, and on your mark, get set, go. And like every other class that I've ever been in, everybody was writing like crazy, and I'm staring off into space. I said, I'm reaching for this idea. An international expert in something, if I just concentrate my mind on that one particular topic, I can have that. He's telling me I can have that. And what came to me was to become an international expert in human relations. I wrote it down. So I've spent the last 50 years, 5,000 hours of seminars that I attended, 3,000 books that I read. 400 are still on my shelf at home. I kept the ones that I thought were most meaningful, and the ones that are really meaningful to me, I've underlined everything that was important in every book, because it was all about good ideas. Good ideas that literally I'm going to get from somebody else that are going to help me get the most and best out of myself. Because we're in a people world. We're in a people business. And everybody forgets that. It seems that my competitors seem to forget that. They seem to think that it's all about technology. It's not all about technology. You got horses pulling the wagon. I think in analogies and metaphors. That's just who I am. I get pictures in my mind, and I'm creative and inventive. I come from a creative and inventive family. And creators and inventors, they ask questions. Everybody else forms opinions. And open-ended. Not paying too much attention to the rules and regulations that are already in place. You can't invent anything new if you're going to pay attention to what's already been structured. So I can go above and beyond. I can extrapolate with that. And this is where the exit formula came from in the first place. I asked questions. Everybody else said those are stupid questions. How can I create a company where, you literally can make more than 100% without paying any desk fees? Now, I'd already worked for the red, white, and blue. And I cut my teeth, at a corporation called Canada Permanent Trust in the city of Toronto as a Canadian. And we did nothing but teach and train and hire people fresh out of school. I did a 20-year study on people fresh out of school, and we found that 83% of them that are fresh out of school are gone in 2 years. They're gone in 2 years. They probably never should have entered in the first place, but they took the course simply because it was cheap by comparison to other educational processes. No one understands that if you go in and get a haircut, and there's Kinley sitting there, his hair is nice and trim and everything else, and he goes and gets a haircut. The person that cuts his hair buzzes his hair, male or female, doesn't matter what. That course costs $7,000 to $10,000 with about 220 hours spent in course just to buzz his hair and clip his hair. But I'm sitting there in Brooklyn and years ago, and I'm putting on a seminar, 60 Minutes with Exit, which I did 720 of those across the country. I've crossed border 2,250 times, so that was 18 years of 60 minutes a year to try to encourage people to join this company. And we started off with like 25 people in the room. We ended up with groups of 500 people in the room. And there was a price that had to be paid, and I paid it. And I'm standing in Brooklyn, and I'm giving a seminar, and this fellow's standing right there. He's looking at me with a big smiley face like he had 64 teeth in his mouth. And I said, I got to ask you a question. I said, in the United States here, and we're talking New York area type of thing. I said, what does it cost to get your real estate license? To sell the biggest property anybody ever owns, and which when we sell it, we get the biggest return on invested time known to man. What does that take? And he says, I can do that in 75 hours. I said, oh, what's that going to cost you? He says, about $400. Selling the biggest product that anybody's ever going to buy, $400 just to get in the industry. To trim somebody's hair, $7,000 to $10,000 to take that course. Now, isn't that interesting? And I said, the funny part about that is even street people could be in this business. Anybody can come into the business because it's inexpensive at the front end. It doesn't cost a lot. But guess what? Of all the ones that think I'm going to try real estate turns around and tries them. Is this easy? It's not easy. And I'm not preaching to the choir because I know in this audience, we've got some of the finest realtors that have ever walked the earth here, who've done numbers bigger than I ever could imagine, stuff I could never do. You've outperformed yourself in many different areas. It's just absolutely outstanding. So I'm not preaching to the choir, but you do know the rest of the industry is filled with people that, simply want to try real estate. Well, there's gaps in between the paychecks. It's all about, the courage of your convictions. And the markets are rhythmical, aren't they? It's one thing when the fish are jumping into the boat. Isn't that the way it's been for the last 2 years? Fish are jumping in the boat. The largest offer presentation situation that I heard of, I think was out of Utah, and they said we had 37 offers on that property. And the lady in question had to put together a spreadsheet just to organize all that to present it to the seller. That's not easy. That's really tough. Everybody says, oh, you guys make so much money. It's feast or famine. You're either making more money than you can spend or you're starving to death. It's the rhythm up, the crest of the wave, and because life is rhythmical, up, and then it's changed. Well, guess what? It's changed a little bit now, hasn't it? Changed a little bit now, and now we're starting to go into a bit of a trough. And so your methodology has to change. Your attitude has to change. So, when we look at you, we say, you're in charge of that. I'm not in charge of you out there. We got to take a look and, from the standpoint of self-examination and say, what am I working with? Well, got a conscious mind, you know that. Got a sort of a subconscious mind, you've heard about that. Got a physical body, you know about that. Got to ask you this question right now. Put up your hand if you would have preferred to come in 10 pounds lighter than you are right now. Put up your hand, don't lie to me, at least 10 pounds lighter. Just about everybody I talk to has put on 10, 20, 30, or 40 pounds. And you're living with that. But you're in control, aren't you? Am I correct in saying that you're in control of you? In fact, when you talk about the word control, being in control of you being in control of you is the only legitimate utilization of control that we have as human beings. Have you noticed that everybody else is trying to control you? This is where the world's screwing up now. Everybody's trying to control everybody else. They're trying to control you. I mean, it doesn't mean if it could be the newscasts on TV. It could be the financial institutions. It could be the governments of the world. All over the place, they're trying to get you to do stuff, control you, when really control is designated to the individual. It's not designated to the group. So here's the question. Are you in control of you? And you sit there and say, am I correct in saying that you're the captain of the ship, you're the pilot of the aircraft, you're the rider of the horse, you're the driver of the car, you're the boss of you? Is that not true? You're the boss of you. I'm not the boss of you. Your husband or your wife or your significant other is not the boss of you. You're the boss of you. Are you in control? Now, let's assume this position for a moment. Here's my analogy. You're standing inside of a chariot. You've got your own chariot. This is your own human life. This is before you go and deal with anybody. It's just you. I'm just talking to you and you being in control of you, and you've got two horses that'll pull that chariot. It's a magnificent chariot, and the wheels are well greased and well oiled, and you've got the reins to the horses in your hand firmly, firmly. Those two horses are your psychology and your emotions. Those two horses will take you any place you want to go, as big as you can see it. But if you lose control and you drop the reins, those horses will run you right off the cliff. Right off the cliff. If you're driving down the road, at 100 clicks, 100 miles an hour, whatever it is, you take your hand off the wheel, the car's not going to drive itself. Before you know it, you're going to be in the ditch. You're going to kill everybody on the road because you lost control. Now, when we look at this thing, I sit there and say, okay, now, are you driving your car or your habits driving your car? You got to keep your eye on the road because you can't drive blindfolded. Isn't that true? But you could be singing a song, you could be talking to somebody beside you, you could be listening to the radio, you could have your mind on some project and so on and so forth. And as long as you keep your eye on the road, your habits drive the car. Your habits, you put habits into play to make you efficient from the standpoint of being a really good driver. And are you better now than when you first started? Remember, try, fail, adjust, try, succeed. Remember that? Remember the first day you sat behind that wheel? Remember the first day? And what if you had to drive your car the way you drove it the first day you sat behind the wheel? Would I be correct in saying you'd be dead by now? Would you be dead, Fred? You'd be gone. But you're better now than you were 5 years ago. You're better now than certainly 15 years ago. You're in a constant state of self-improvement. So should that not be on your agenda, to be in a constant state of self-improvement? Well, if you're going to improve on a regular basis and make it comfortable for you and everybody in the family, because as the captain of the ship, you know, the boss, and boss is supposed to be a four-letter word, a positive four-letter word in your life. If you're going to be the boss of you, you got to stay in control and with a firm grip of what that's all about. Day by day, every day has got its own challenges, isn't that right? Some days you got 20 things to do. Other days you only got 2 things to do. Some days you're sitting around with almost nothing to do. So every day's got its own potentiality, its own capabilities and everything else. You got to rise to the occasion, make yourself available, and do whatever's on your plate. But am I correct in saying you can only do so much in one day? You can only do so much in a week or a month? And then we get into the idea of gluttony. Have you ever suffered from that before? How do you think you put on the 10, 20, or 30, or 40 pounds? You lost fork control. No longer had fork control. If you're going to change the weight because you just don't like it, I mean, you can layer your clothing. You know, I see a lot of you have layered your clothing already. You layer your clothing so nobody knows. You say, well, he doesn't care and they don't know. And you sit there and say, does it really matter? Am I correct in saying that, as we examine you, and the older you get, the slower you get? Is that not true? Well, you should have set up some leverages there so you can have a life that's building in an ever-increasing crescendo so it gets better and better and better as opposed to worse and worse and worse. Do you know that every time you have a birthday, you start to act a little bit older because you just achieved a higher level? And you assumed a new position, so all of a sudden you're cutting your hair a little bit differently, you're wearing different clothing, all of a sudden you're wearing the flowered dresses, starting to look like a grandmother simply because you're past 60 years of age. Do you know the trepidation that goes on in our head office with people crossing the road of 60 years of age? I look at 60 years of age and I sit there and say, you're nothing but a baby, you're just a kindergarten student, you're not even there yet because I passed that 16 years ago. 60 years of age is young to me. But all of a sudden you're 60 and moan and groan and you're going to go about your life differently and everything else. You're going to walk a little bit slower and, complain about your aches and pains and all of this stuff. And it just makes it worse and worse and worse. When was the last time you caught a cold? I mean, we've already gone through 2.5 years of this sickness thing that's been all over the place, but just catching the common cold. Now think about it for a moment. My wife's got a cold right now, but here's how it goes. You start to feel it coming on. And then you start to say to somebody that you think you're catching one. Then it all of a sudden grasps you and it owns you. It owns you. You know where that place is. It owns you right at that point. And all of a sudden you're going into the ditch, right? Now you're telling everybody that you've got it and you feel terrible and you're going through all of the symptoms of it and everything else right to the bottom of the ditch. Now you've been there for 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, sometimes 2 weeks. And you said, I got to get healthy. I got to get out of this ditch. Now you switch your thinking around and you start to think about climbing out of the ditch. First of all, you're thinking about heading to the bottom of the ditch. Now you've changed your modus operandi with regard to how you're going to approach your life. Now you're starting to climb out of the ditch. Now it's not until you focus on what you want to have happen is anything different going to happen. When you focus on what is, it stays is. What you've got to do is learn how to think with your thinking mind. Learn how to focus your mind on what you want, not the way it is. The way it is might not be the way you want it. If it's exactly the way you want it, then you reinforce it because everything you think about. Now, no one understands everything you think about, you reinforce. So let's go right there. What's a thought? If we're going to deal with thoughts, I mean, we take it for granted we know what this stuff is. I don't think you do. If I gave you a pad of paper and said, write down everything you know about thinking, how far would that go? A paragraph? Would you hand in a paragraph? Would you get a whole page? Would you get a couple of pages? Would you write a book? You really don't know anything about that. Do you know anything about nutrition? Practically not. You're cooking meals and so on and so forth. If I could put on the head of a pin what most people know about nutrition, they don't know anything. They don't know how to feed their body. What about exercise, physical exercise? How much do you know about that and how much are you doing it? Only 20%. I used to run a gym when I was 19 years of age. You sit there and say, you really don't know anything. 20% go to the gym, 1% leave their guts on the floor before they leave the gym. Which one are you? Which one are you? You're going there to lollygag, are you? You're going there to talk on your cell phone? Oh, you got to do texting and everything in between the sets and the reps? Is that who you are? Now, am I correct in saying, now, just talking to you now, just having a conversation, am I correct in saying you get what you concentrate on? Is that true? Is that true? I think it's pretty true. You get what you focus on all day long. Focusing on something is concentrating on it to the exclusion of all other things. In other words, one-trick pony, I'm focusing on that. When you're in the gym, you should be in the gym. There's no such thing as multitasking. Do you not know that the conscious mind, you live up here, right? If I said, where do you live in your body? You're not going to say, I live in my elbow, I live in my ankle, right? You're not going to say that. Say, no, I'm up here. I'm up here, baby. This is where I reside, is up here. Isn't that the truth? I'm up here. Okay, now let's look at this. This universe is electromagnetic. It's an intentional universe that's electromagnetic. It's all about electricity, and that causes a magnetism, a magnetic pole. It's the basis of the law of attraction. Yeah. Whatever you're thinking about, however you act and react, you have a tendency to attract others that resonate at exactly the same. In other words, when they're on the same roller coaster as you're on, you can relate to them. Now, people say, well, I'm really in frequency with that person. Oh, that person gives me good vibes. We talk about this. Thoughts are electromagnetic transmissions of intention. Yeah, and you actually think, you've been brought up to think, and you've never thought this through, you think your thoughts stay in your head. You actually think that what you're thinking about stays in here. Nobody knows what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking in secret, private, and they just don't know. And you're absolutely, totally wrong. Because in the electromagnetic spectrum, all the vibrations that you can pick up as a human being, and big sound waves and light waves at one end, and then you've got gamma rays, X-rays at the other end, and so on and so forth. Thoughts are at the short end of that electromagnetic spectrum. They're the tiniest waves in that electromagnetic spectrum. Nothing can stop them. Now, you go to the dentist. Now, come on, you've been there. And you go there. You sit there and say, they put a lead shield on my chest, and the dentist, put that thing in my mouth and everything else, going to take pictures with X-rays. And then he or she, whoever it is, hides behind the wall, hits the button, click, click, takes the picture, and then comes back in because the lead shield, that 1/4 inch of lead sitting on your chest, will stop X-rays. But if that was gamma rays going through there, gamma rays are shorter than X-rays. The gamma rays would sneak right through the lead and kill you. You see what I'm saying? The penetrativeness of the wave has to do with the wavelength. Now, here's a wave. Now, the way you're looking, here's the wave. Crest, trough, that's a wave. Now, as fast as that fires off, that's the frequency. The wavelength, up and down, and how fast it fires is frequency, and that sends out vibrations out into the world. And they're totally penetrative. Nothing can stop thoughts. Nothing can stop thoughts. Your thoughts don't stay in your head. You're like a sun radiating rays out into the universe. And all thoughts are boomerangs. Excuse me, all thoughts are boomerangs. Send out crap, get crap back. Send out good stuff, get good stuff back. Is that not how your life works? Is that not the truth? Yeah. Cause and effect. Retributive justice in the universe. The law of compensation. Call it whatever you want. Whatever you send out is what comes back. In fact, nothing in the world happens to you. There's no such thing as something happening to you. You send out vibrations, and that causes feedback back to you. Every person that's in your life gives you feedback as according to who you are. They're reflections of who you are. Every person you've got, friendly, not friendly, relatives, they call them relatives because you can't relate to them. And you sit there and say, sometimes your biggest struggle in your life is with your relatives. They give you more struggle than everybody else. Have you come to the realization that the tree that grows the tallest is the one that's out in the clearing? The tree that's in there with all the other trees, they rob each other of sunlight. They're trying to get the food in the ground and everything else, and they stop each other from growing. That's why kids move out. When I moved out, I was 19 years of age. Kids don't move out like that today. 35% of every kid at 28 to 32 is still living at home. Afraid to go out in the universe, afraid to be out in the clearing, Afraid to do it all by themselves, they're still hiding under the realm of protection. Cheapest place in town, I'm going to stay with mom. Now, so every thought you think in your conscious mind, which is thinking is a male process. Feeling is a female process. Your subconscious mind, which is down through the ages, has always been called the heart of hearts, is at the heart level. Now, I said you've got 100 billion brain cells up here. You've also got 40,000 brain cells in your heart that are independent of what's going on in your brain. Your heart is the seat of the subconscious. Now, when we start to look at the conscious and subconscious, there's no scientist, no doctor alive that can tell you exactly where the subconscious mind is. We just know that it's, for the most part, as far as you're concerned, and as far as this talk is concerned, we're gonna give it a location and say it's in your heart. Thoughts trigger feelings, feelings instigate action, action creates results. True? True? The all-encompassing cause in your life is thoughts. What are you thinking about? Now, I've asked you this question before. Have you ever thought about the thoughts you're thinking about? Right? Because thoughts predicate what's going to happen in your life. Your perspective on how you see it, that's going to determine what reflects back, because you sent those vibes out and they're going to come back to you, and you're going to form impressions as a result of that. So thinking is all important. Now, if we talk about, spirit and soul, if you went down the religious side of that and everything else, we can switch this all around and talk about all that. I'll say this. This is just my perspective, okay? You've got your own perspectives. I think, because I truly believe that nothing happens by accident. I don't think anything happens on earth without a plan. There's always a plan there before there's action orientation and experience. And I think Prime Creator, the intellect that put all this together in the first place, the entire cosmos and everything else, which I would call spirit, is everywhere, evenly present, always in you, all around you, and works through you. There's no place it's not. That's my perspective. No place it's not. It's not some little old man with a beard and a candy cane in one hand and a sickle in the other sitting on a cloud over there. Get past that. It's pure intelligence flowing through consciousness, and everything is conscious. And my wife and I, we've got a property, 10 acres of property, and it's got a ton of rocks on it. I mean, we got tens of thousands of rocks, and some of them are pretty big. Rocks, and they all look dead. They all look as if they wouldn't have any consciousness at all. You say, no, they're not alive. You sit there and say, no, the scientists say there's little tiny particles going on at horrendous speeds and everything else in everything. There's no place those little particles aren't. They're in everything. They're in the rocks, but they're moving so slowly from the standpoint of your perspective that you think the rock is dead, that there's no consciousness there. There's consciousness in all things. Now, the mineral kingdom, okay, mountains, okay, rocks, sand, all of that, earth, and then we've got the vegetable kingdom, everything that grows. Then we got the animal kingdom, then we got the human kingdom, then we got the spiritual kingdom, 5 kingdoms. DNA only exists from the vegetable kingdom up to the human kingdom. There's no necessity. See, DNA doesn't exist in the mineral kingdom. It doesn't exist. DNA requires water. There's no such thing as DNA. And you say, what is DNA? DNA are blueprints. Blueprints that are going to be executed inside of you. The tree is only going to go so tall. This particular tree has pine cones. This one doesn't. And it's a blueprint finding execution in this world. Blueprints. And your genes are blueprints. Genes are software. Genes are software. Now, if you were to watch and study Bruce Lipton's material, one of the finest biologists in the world, historically famous everywhere, written books and everything else, and he says, your body's not controlled by genes at all. Not when you study it deeply and thoroughly. They've led you to believe that. It's not true at all. It's an intentional universe. The genes literally belly up to the bar according to your intentions. So when you think Uncle Henry died of a certain disease and everything else, and because you're related to him, you think you're going to pass away because of the fact that you're related to him, that intention triggers the gene to move into place, the software to move into place, and yes, you can make that happen, but it all happened as a result of intentions. So, up here, let's go up here. I said you're the boss of you. What that means is you're the architect. You're the architect of your whole life, all based on choice. You're making choices on a daily basis. Now, sit there and weigh all the important relative information, detail specifics, and so on and so forth, and you summarize all, and you analyze and scrutinize it accurately and efficiently, and you come to good sound conclusions. And, to a great degree, you start to rely on intuition to try to get the picture right. Until the picture right, it's not going to turn out the way you want it to turn out. Now, am I correct in saying this? Architects, say it's the construction of a house. Could be a condominium, whatever. Does the architect build the house? No. The contractor does. Oh, how does that relate to me? It's relativity in all things. This is the contractor of your life, spiritually driven. Every molecule in your body is spiritually driven, spiritually guided. The male portion of that, thinking is action-oriented, feelings is reaction-oriented. The male part of that, you could say, if you wanted to go spiritual, along this line of thinking, that Father God is in your head, the creator. Mother God is in your subconscious mind. That's where the feelings are. That's female. Your subconscious mind is totally female. And everybody's that way. Conscious thinking mind is the planning department, and the subconscious mind deep down here is the contractor that gets stuff done. Am I correct in saying, now look at yourself very closely here. Am I correct in saying that based on how you feel about something, that's going to determine the amount of energy that you put into it? That's going to determine the result. Is that not true? When you feel really good about something, you're going to put your heart, mind, soul, and body and being into it. When you don't, you'll retract. Is that not true? So based on how you feel about something, based on how you feel about the blueprint, which was put in from this department, based on that blueprint and whether or not it was detail specific, it was good for everybody, it was built with pure pleasure and everything else, positive, constructive, creative, based on how you feel about it, that's going to determine the energy you put out to put that into reality. And your physical body is there to carry your brain around. Now, your physical body needs an operator. Doesn't your car need an operator? Your car will sit in your driveway and rust out unless you get into it and you turn the key and you decide to go someplace, because at that point, the operator is present. Before you got in the car, the operator is not present. When you're in a coma in a hospital, the operator has left the room. Thank you very much. No longer there. The body's still functioning, automatic process and everything else. The body's perfect, but the operator's no longer present. Presence is an important thing. Being present when you're present is a very important thing. Being really in the room. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. I wonder why it's designed that way. Put up your hand if you've learned a lot this week, 4 days of absolute learning. Put up your hand if that's been good for you. Has it been good for you? Eh? Is there any place you'd rather be than in this room this week? I mean, is there any place more special? Oh, my dog's sick at home. Oh, I got a friend, or my relative's in the hospital. You could come up with a million excuses not to be here, but was it valuable to you to be here, to listen to the perspectives of the teachers, trainers, and coaches and conditioning experts that have hit that stage this week to assist you in being the finest and best you can be? Isn't that precious? Isn't that valuable for you? Yeah. Now, architect, contractor, physical body. Now, you got muscles, 640 muscles. Your muscles can only do 2 things, contract and relax. Yeah, they're electrically oriented. Your brain is electrically oriented. It functions through electricity. And the conducer of that electricity is water. Are you drinking the right amount of water? Clean, clear water? Are you well hydrated? Because even the champions in the Olympics know this. If your water content's down 3%, your energy drops off 13%. That's your energy for lifting weights and stuff like that, and your endurance drops off 13% as a result of your water content being down 30%, because you're nothing but electrical. You're electrical. Water is absolutely important to you. You can only live about 3 days without it. And a lot of heads just went sideways there when I said, are you drinking enough water? And the point of the matter is there isn't. You know what alcohol does for you? Alcohol dries out your entire system. You know why you get a hangover and you're hungover in the morning? Because you're totally dried up. The finest thing you could do before you go to sleep, if you had a few drinks the night before, is to drink 2 glasses of water before you go to bed. You will not have a hangover in the morning, because you've got to rehydrate yourself, because the alcohol got rid of that. If you drink a lot of tea and a lot of coffee, put up your hand if you drink a lot of tea and a lot of coffee. Are you one of them? Am I correct in saying that you can't get your motor started in the morning unless you have 2 cups of coffee? The C temperaments that are sitting in this room, don't speak to them before they've had their 2nd cup of coffee. How do I know that? I live with one. Hey, be quiet. Don't say a word until she's had her 2nd cup of coffee. What's coffee do? Stimulates adrenaline, gets you going. right? Isn't that true? It could be green tea, could be a number of different things that way, but it's a stimulator to get you going, get the engine prepped and ready to go. Your body, are you exercising enough? Should you do a little bit more? Are you walking enough? Are you getting around? Because when you walk, when you exercise your body, any kind of movement is the exercise of the future, by the way. Have you not been pretty stationary for 2.5 years, 3 years? Pretty stationary? Where do you think the weight came from in the first place? Yeah, and where is most of it? From your belly button down, isn't that true? Pretty most of it, that's where most of it went. And you sit there and say, you're either in control or you're not. You're either gonna put up with that or you're not, right? Now, am I correct in saying that if you're gonna be a good gardener and you're gonna grow flowers in the garden, that you gotta know how to weed your garden? If you don't weed the garden, that could be a real estate office. If you don't weed the garden, one rotten apple can ruin the whole barrel. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? Hello? The flowers in your garden can look absolutely fabulous, but if there are weeds all over the place and you didn't weed the garden properly, they don't get full expression. You didn't do your job properly. So you sit there and say, you're the charioteer. But if you're running a real estate office, and we got bosses in here and people that run real estate offices, that's their calling, that's who they are. And building and stabilizing, right? What's the point of building something if you're not going to stabilize it? What's the residual process all about? It's about stabilizing people. Once you've sponsored in 2 people, try to explain to your wife or your significant other you're going to go back to one of those straight desk fee companies or deal fee companies or multi-level marketing companies because you no longer got that exterior money coming in, the flows of income that are possibly there for you as a result of this system. Now, know and understand one thing, people. This is not just about taking listings and making sales. I already know you can do that. You can go to any real estate company out there and get that. Do you see much going on in the outside world that's designed for people? Of the people, for the people, by the people? Do you see that? I don't see that. And you sit there and say, no, the wrecking ball is out there. The wrecking ball is out there. And, COVID was just the Titanic hitting the iceberg. That's all that was. It broke into 2. Has it hit the bottom yet? No. So what do you have to be with this physicality, this mentality, this emotional side, the psychology side of you? What do you have to do? You have to sit there and say, you've got to be versatile, flexible, pliable, durable. Yeah, you got to be able to weather the storm. So what do? Assume the position. Now, the power of assumption is dedicated to you just like control. You cannot assume anything about anybody else because you're making an ass out of you and me. You heard that. Right? You know that. Assumption, you must assume the position. Kathy Corp sang the national anthems on the first day. I spoke to her, and previous to that, and I said, am I correct in saying that just before you sing, and she's cut records, and she's just excellent and does a marvelous job. And she was, in her younger days, she was a baton twirling champion. And literally, whatever she puts her mind on, and she's a fabulous agent and just doing a magnificent job. And I said, am I correct in saying that before you go out and sing, am I correct in saying you assume the position? You assume a certain position just before you begin. Is that true? She says, yes, it is. Now, it's like being in ballet. If you think, and you watch other people in ballet and so on and so forth, and the grand master comes in, and whoever it is, the trainer, teacher, and says this, plie, assume the position, right? And they know exactly what to do, how to put their feet and everything else, exactly, neck control, everything they've been taught. Assume the position. Now, if you're a manager in this business, you assume the position of being a manager. A leader, you assume the position of being a leader. If you're a salesperson, you assume the position of being a salesperson. And is there room for improvement with what you do? I'll say this right now, and I'm not taking a cheap shot because, like I said before, some of the greatest of the greats are sitting in front of me doing stuff that I've never imagined people could actually ever do. Jeremy goes and polishes off the tri-realathon at 28 years of age. Hello? 28 years of age doing over 200 deals. Do you know that there's only 220 days in a work year? Hello? How many got away? How many listings did that? What? Oh my gosh, how do you do that? I don't even know how to do that. Young people are really grasping on to what Exit's all about, what the real estate business is all about, the people business. It's all about people business. You sit there and say, are you a people person? Well, to get to know anybody else, you got to get to know yourself. You want to become more interesting? Get interested. Isn't that the truth? When you help people, you've helped hundreds of people. If I help you in any way, shape, or form, you're going to go out and deal with hundreds of people. And what we've done by helping you is going to radiate out into those hundreds of people because your attitude might change, your approach might change, your demeanor might change, And as a result of that, it radiates out because this is a universe, a vibratory universe. And when the little tiny particles that are flying all over the place vibrate, they pulse on and pulse off. Pulse on and pulse off. That's where the vibration comes from, in the first place. That creates waves. It confuses the scientists because they can't figure out the difference between the pulsation and the wave. They're still trying to figure that out. But you're sending out waves all the time. So here's the position to assume. We're going to assume the position. In your head, assume this position. You're Robin Hood. You've seen Robin Hood movies, right? And you know how that works. You got a quiver on your back. You got your bow and arrow, right? Every time you think a thought, you just shot an arrow out into the universe. And every arrow hits its target. Every arrow hits its target. This is why prayer works. The shortest vibration in the spectrum, totally penetrative, non-stoppable, nothing can stop it. You could have a relative 10,000 miles away in a hospital, and you could say a prayer for that person, and literally, let's look at this. What's a prayer? Prayer is an ancient word. Let's put this into modern language. A prayer is a request, isn't that true? Isn't that true? It's a request. That's the best definition for prayer. It's a request. And you're putting a request out there to the universe of, Bill's in the hospital, give Bill the strength to get through this. And literally it's a request. You're requesting that it happen. It's not a demand. It's not force. We don't use force. Force is a useless tool. The universe hates force, abhors force. Square pegs and round holes, that doesn't work in the universe. The only thing that works in the universe is reinforce. Reinforce. Are you good at reinforcing your relationships? Not forcing your relationships. Prayer always works. I've had many classes of people sitting in front of me, and I've asked them to put up their hand and say, I'll ask you now and see your response. How many people believe that prayer works? Put up your hand if you believe prayer works. Yeah, high majority. Some people don't know. I heard it on the news the other day that they truly believe in North America today that we're 20% atheists now. They said, I don't believe in anything. Really? Did we drop the ball here? Yeah. Prayer always works. But then I ask them the next question. How many people pray on a regular basis? Very few hands go up. So if 95% of the hands went up when they said they believe prayer works, 95% of the hands went up. And then when I said how many people are praying, 40% of the hands went up. They believe it works, but they're not using it. Isn't that precarious to you? If you think it works, why aren't you using it? Why don't you do that on a regular basis? What's the big book say? It says pray incessantly. Pray incessantly. Well, what do you pray for? You pray for what you want to have happen, not what you don't want to have happen, right? When you're driving down the road in your car, it's another analogy, you focus on the road and what's ahead. You don't look straight down, right? You look about where you want to go. You don't focus on the ditch all the time. If you focus on the ditch all the time, you're going to go in the ditch. If you're skiing down a hill and you're looking right in front of your skis, you're going to go down. You look with regard to your destination. You're the captain of your ship. You're in charge of destinations. But guess what? To have a well-balanced life, because karma is about imbalance, there's payback with that. To have a well-balanced life, you've got to make the journey enjoyable for everybody in your life. You're the captain of the ship. You're expected to arrive at your destination. If you said you're going to Portugal and you ended up in England, everybody on the ship's going to be dissatisfied. You're in charge of the destination, but can you make it comfortable for everybody? Is it comfortable for your family with what you're doing? Some people in this room burn so hot, and all I've suggested in the past is that when you're burning too hot with your rocket ship going to the moon, achieving all your goals so you can go up and get a piece of plastic, did you scorch everybody in your family? Was it a good ride for them as well? Do you know how to keep the balance with regard to that? Are you present when you're talking with your kids? Or are you on the cell phone all the time and on your computer back and forth? You're physically in the room, but your mind is someplace else and they know it. Are you present when you're present? They don't need you there all the time. They know you're not going to be there all the time. They know you're busy elsewhere. You lead by example by setting a good example. When you go out and do a good job, they know that. But when you're there with them, be with them. They're very important, absolutely important. And those impressions last a lifetime. And it's all about reinforcement. It's not about force. You can't force a plant to grow. You go to your garden and you try, the tulips are not coming up quick enough, so you think you're going to help them to grow. You'll kill them all. You can't force anything to happen. You can't be a horse whipper. You got to be a horse whisperer. Horse whisperer, encouragement is what it's all about. Encourage them to be the best they can be. And my mother, when she was still alive, my mom's been dead 50 years. Yours might be still in the room. Mine's been dead for 50 years. My dad's been dead for 20 years. But they did drop some pearls of wisdom on me. And they had their confrontations. Everybody's got to work out their own stuff. Every family's got to work out their own stuff. And they're brought together for particular reasons. There's no accidents. You came together with who you're with right now because that person is the only person around that can get the most and the best out of you. Your likenesses brought you together to work out your differences. Since you've been with your partner, have you noticed a few differences? I mean, when your likenesses were firing off, you couldn't leave each other alone. You know what it was like in the beginning, courting and all that stuff. Oh my gosh. And wombo, put together like this. Now you have to spend the rest of your life working out your differences. Has there been a few rough edges, has there? Yeah. Divorce is roughly around 75%. They only acknowledge about 52%, but most of them can't make it work. You know why? They're still into conditional love. Conditional love. Conditional love doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I throw it in the toilet. I actually have my own carburetor. Anybody that knows me, I have a carburetor. It's an Italian carburetor. I call it Garbaggio. It's got its own name. And if I don't like something, I trash it. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to use it. And I just trash it and get rid of it. Editing is a very important part about running your own life. Input, there's only two things you can do with a biological computer. That's what you got on your shoulders. That's what you're walking around with, is a biological computer. Input and editing, right? When you're sitting in front of your computer at home, you can put stuff in, you can take stuff out. That's about all you can do with that machine. Now, if you sit outside of it, you don't know how to push the buttons. Google sits there with all the information that Google's got, constantly increasing in its knowledge. That's what Spirit's doing as well, living its life through you. It's constantly increasing. As you go out and live your life and go through experiences, growing and growing, and Google is growing and growing. That's what it does. But all the information can be in that computer, but because you don't have the passwords, you don't have the entry system, it sits there and you can't access it. Now, your subconscious mind here, the powerhouse here, is executive by nature, executes your intentions into reality through your physicality, right? That's what it does, executive. And she listens to what you're thinking about. What you're thinking about, she thinks, and it's female, she thinks are instructions to be manifested in the real estate. So she puts you in front of all the right people, situations, circumstances, and events and ingredients necessary to fulfill the blueprints that you put together in your own head. That's how it all works. Every person that's in your life that you don't like is reflecting you back to you, showing you that there's something in your heart, could be previous conditioning by another person when you were too young to resist. You've got a belief system in there that needs to be worked on. You need to be going back to the drawing board and do some sanding and polishing, sanding and polishing, sanding and polishing. And if you did it properly, those things would not bother you anymore, right? Now, let's look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what did my parents pass down to me? My mother, when I was just a young gaffer, she said, you can do anything you put your mind on. That was good advice to me. She said it a few times. I remember saying it once, but it stuck like glue to me. And my father, we had our challenges, and he took the position of saying, you're responsible. If I had to take care of, I was the oldest of all the grandchildren, you're responsible, and there are no excuses. No excuses. Now when stuff goes wrong and everything else, I can't think of an excuse because my father told me there are no excuses. He conditioned that into my brain. What's conditioning? Repetition, repetition, repetition. The first law of learning is all about repetition. What did we do to make you into the finest person you could possibly be? We introduced the affirmation principle to you. Put in prompter, little mechanism there, free. I'm not charging you for it. I handed out any books I've written, free. Yeah, you didn't have to pay for it. And you sit there and say, those that are interested will grapple onto it, and those that are not interested will not. It's going to be good for some people. It's not maybe going to be good for everybody because it's all about consciousness. It's about the level of consciousness that you're at. You know who pays the most attention to these things? The champions in the industry, the champions in this room. The more productive they are, the more they want to know. And the ones that can't figure it out, don't understand the people business, can't understand the gaps between the paychecks, are practically starving to death in the real estate business, never should have come here in the first place, did it for all the wrong reasons. They don't pay any attention to all the stuff that we've got in Memo, into the machinery that we put together by the little geniuses that I surround myself with. They don't use it. It's like a shoe shiner at the airport. I get my shoes shined every time I go there. These guys have to do 40 sets of shoes every day to pay their bills. They got families. If he charged me $8 to shine my shoes, I'll give him $20. Why wouldn't I? You know, he's trying to raise his kids, right? What am I going to do, be stingy with my last dollar? You know what? No, help him up. But then I get into conversations with him because I'm kind of a conversational person. I like to talk and chat with everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. I want to find out what's going on in their lives, how they run their lives, what they believe in, how they treat money, how they raise their kids, how they come and go, whether they ever take a vacation, you know, whether they're good to themselves or whether they're always bitching and complaining. You know, what's going on in there? And while he's shining my shoes and doing a professional job, he's calling other people as they walk by. Shoe shine, and he's trying to get more business, right? He's canvassing for business perpetually, canvassing for business, and they walk by. You know who stops and gets them? The ones with the shiniest shoes to start off with are the ones that always get shined. And my comment back to them, isn't it interesting? The ones that need it the most are the ones that never stop. Am I correct in saying there's people in your office that should have been in this room this week? Is there not people in this room? But they found every excuse not to come. And they sit there and say to me, I want to be the best I can be. No, if you really wanted that, you would have found the money. Am I correct in saying, look at your life for a minute. Am I correct in saying everything you've ever wanted in your life, you found the money for? Because if you didn't really want it, you'd find an excuse not for being there. So when they say, I can't afford it, no, they don't want to come. Goes back to that. They don't want to come. We've had people come to this convention that did not have the money to go home. They had the money to get there, and they just pray to God that there's going to be somebody that'll help me drive home. I'll find a way home, but I got to be in that room, right? Climb over cut glass to be there. Now, I couldn't come and be physically and give you a hug this week, but I could certainly come this way. And sure, it's a lot more expensive than everything else, but hey, I had to be here. I could not be here, right? And to participate in this and to listen to who you are, what you care about, and your participation and your feeling factor. All I heard all week long, everybody responding back to me is the feelings in this room. The feeling is, you could just feel it, right? The corporate love affair. Isn't that something? Love, you know? Yeah, it's vivid, isn't it? Unconditional love is unconditional acceptance. When you put a sold sign in a property, isn't that one of your proudest moments? Put a sold sign in a property? Just got our sold, baby. Double ender, oh my gosh. What does sold mean? Sold means unconditional acceptance. Sold means unconditional acceptance, not contingencies. There's no conditions here. It's done like dinner. And love is exactly the same. It's a vivid sense of unconditional warm regard. Take the sex out of it, put that over there. It's a different department. We could talk all day about that, but that's not the kind of topic I'm going to deal with here. You sit there and say, take that out of there, and the people you're sitting around right now, can you actually say, I'm experiencing a vivid sense of unconditional warm regard for this person, for these people? I experience it's vivid. You know what I mean by vivid? Vivid sense of unconditional, no contingencies. You don't have to do anything. I just love you the way you are. It's just, if you want to modify that, if you want to go to the gym and beat yourself up, if you want to dress a little bit differently and everything else, I just love you for who you are. Because it's not about you controlling somebody else. It's about you being in control. They've got the same job. They've got to be in control of themselves, and they got to live life with free will. Have you seen free will suddenly starting to disappear from the earth? Simply because everybody else is trying to control you, that free will is dissipating, it's evaporating, and it's not there like it used to be before. Can you see the differences? The thing in the absence of the thing, right? When you've got it, and the question is, did you appreciate it in the first place? Were you going through gluttony? We throw more food in the garbage than you could feed the whole world with. Is that not true? Hey, oh, I don't want that. No, the taste bad. No, throw it out. Hey, now, I once complained about not having new shoes until I saw a man with no feet. Isn't that true? The appreciation of another individual in your life. Now, in my life, my wife is the cornerstone of our family. And we've got 7 kids. That's 2 girls, 5 boys. That's an experience when you go through the teenage life of those kids. That's an experience. Yeah, and now we've got 11 grandchildren, and that's 6 girls and 5 boys, and 1 is 7, and everybody else is under 5, and they're all going to be teenagers together. Oh, can't wait till that happens. And you sit there and say, is that a challenge for the parents involved? Hey, never underestimate the fact that mothering is the hardest job on earth. Give the job to a man and see him panting, and say, for a month, you're going to take care of the kids. Yeah, he'll be going to the funny farm before that month is over with. There's not going to be anything. He'll be sawdust and iron filings by the time that's finished. Are you kidding me? It's tough. And who do they remember at the other end? Now, granted, Dad probably, and this is the way it's been for 6,500 years, Dad was out making a living, and he's a man of few words in most cases. This is, and all of us are male and females, as I've said before, with different mixes. And you've got to deal with the cards you've been dealt with. And you sit there and say, the average man has about 7,000 words that he uses on a daily basis. The average woman has 20,000. John comes home from work. He's used up his 7,000 words. She used up 7,000 as well. Guess what? She's still got 13,000 left. And she talks about things he can't relate to, like, isn't he cute? Right? And, you know, she sees it with a different sense of perspective. She's working with estrogen. As a male, you're working with testosterone. Testosterone's the angry hormone. Have you noticed that all world wars were created by men? Have you noticed that? Now, Bruce Lipton, when he wrote his first books, he says, Mother Nature has figured out that the predator that lives on Earth, with regard to the humans that are living here, is the male of the species, and she's setting out to get rid of him. And I thought, whoa, I happen to be one. And you sit there and say, haven't we had a little bit too much of that? When we invent something and create something, do we have to turn it into a gun? I mean, is that necessary? Is that absolutely necessary? Is that what it's all about today? Guess what? Guess what, men? Here's a new one for you. You don't need testosterone to hit a computer key, do you? No. The playground has been leveled. You don't need your muscles anymore to do that. They got automatons, and by 2030, they're, they got a cyborg platform coming out. I watched, it was a few months ago now, I watched a cyborg, like a computer, shaped like a person, drywall an entire basement. Record time. Zip, 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 put it all together. You didn't need a male in there to do it. That machine just did it. Yeah. Are things changing? Oh, yeah. Rapid fire. They're changing. The best businesses in the world are invented in basements by women, not men today. The highest marks in Harvard University are by females, not males today. Women are rising to the occasion, and we've said that from day one with regard to exit. The female is finding herself. She's no longer going to be suppressed. There's no longer going to be a thumb down on her, because with computers and so on and so forth and communication services, she speaks about 20,000 words a day. She's a better communicator than men. Men are silent when they're going through the forest to shoot the squirrels, because if you make a lot of noise, you're not coming home with squirrels. But women have to take care of multitasking from that standpoint: stir the stew, knit the clothing, take care of the kids. Everybody goes to the bathroom together, right? And protect yourselves and everything else. And it's multitasking upside down and backwards, things that most men are not very good at. And they got a number of things happening. All the people that work in my back office at Exit are multitaskers. Balls in the air. And squaring out all my people in the field are one-trick ponies. Because salespeople, true salespeople, and this is you sitting there, you get passionate about stuff. You turn into a laser beam. You get passionate about selling. And you use things like, tie downs. Isn't it, wouldn't it, couldn't it, shouldn't it, don't you agree? And that's exactly what you want, isn't it? You make a statement, add a question to it, and you caught the fish. It's implied consent. And alternative choice closes. Did you want that hat in purple, or is green better for you? And how to sell stuff, how to modify your selling procedures, because you're dealing with the public. And we call them strangers. Yeah, some of them are pretty strange. Look at the person sitting beside you. Some of them are pretty strange, aren't they? I mean, aren't there some pretty strange people in this room? There really are. Now, you're in the people business. Sometimes you could sit there and say, I feel like a zookeeper. I feel like a zookeeper. Yeah, if you're going to be a zookeeper, especially in real estate offices, watch out, some of them bite. Some of them bite. You can stick your hand in with a llama, nothing's going to happen. You stick your hand in with a lion, you're coming back with, from your wrist down, it's gone. You sit there and say, that one will bite, this one won't. And different people, different strokes for different folks, they have different intentions. You think they're all good intentioned? In karate, they teach you, even when you bow, don't take your eyes off the opponent. Never take your eyes off the opponent, right? Yeah. In real estate, your opponent probably, in many cases, wants it more than you. Do you know that competition is important to get the most and the best out of you? If you're the only runner in the race, how fast are you going to run? I line up 6 other people. You could be in the Olympics. I line up 6 other people that want to run your tail off, and we're going to get a better race out of you. Because what do? They trigger adrenaline in you, adrenaline you can't find yourself. You'll get the most and the best out of yourself when competition arrives. We're going to go to that dance tonight. You're going to be there, dance till you drop. I mean, we got a dance floor set up for 1,500 people, and they're all going to be up there. I don't care if you got 2 left feet. You get up there and dance like nobody's watching. They're half drunk anyway. They don't see you. They don't know you. Let the music talk to you and blow off some of the steam because you're a little pent up. I mean, some of you, by the look in your face, I'm looking right at a guy sitting there with a green shirt on. Yeah, you're a little backed up, right? You got that look in your face. And you sit there and say, hit the dance floor. Go home exhausted. Go home exhausted. Dance like doesn't matter. I just want to just let loose. Every movement under the sun, there's going to be, cocktail attire. And this is a formal affair. It's cocktail attire, but it's stand-up. As far as food is concerned, workstations and stuff, they got a little bit different. We just take a little bit different approach. This is Florida. And, it's all designed to get the most and the best out of you. Now, if you can't have fun, don't do it. I want you to form a new habit. Habits make you very efficient. I want you to form a new habit. Here's your habit. It's spelled a little differently. H-A-B-A-T-T. H-A-B-A-T-T. Habit. Have a ball all the time. That's what I want you to do. And I want you to show that expression out there tonight and just have an absolutely wonderful time. Safe, sound, and secure home. Just have an absolutely fabulous time tonight. Finish this off, a crowning glory, and dance till you drop. And get a smile on your face. Shake hands and make friends with everybody. Warm and friendly and soft and cuddly. There's nothing better than that. And we wish you all the very best. And on behalf of everybody at Exit Realty Corp International and everything that we stand for, we're building and stabilizing, understand this, we're building and stabilizing the largest and most productively successful real estate company in the entire world with over 100,000 real estate agents. That's bottom line. Top line is 250,000 that absolutely love and respect the company and take this single level residuals, 10% off the top as long as they stay with the company, 7% retirement program, 5% beneficiary benefit, and creating income streams like they've never had before, creating leverage, which is good for their families, good for their bank accounts, good for them, good for their future, and enjoying every moment of it. So I say to you, go forth and multiply.